Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I'm so glad you're joining me today because we are breaking down a seriously fascinating set of developments happening right now in the web dev world. We're looking at the latest WordPress updates curated from WP More Issue 49. And as we dig into this week's news, there's this undeniable massive theme tying the whole thing together, and that is data. Specifically, we're going to be looking at who controls it, the trust we place in it, and this really growing asymmetry within the entire ecosystem.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Who actually controls WordPress data? I mean, it seems like a simple enough question, right? But as we trace the flow of information from market share reports and theme installs all the way to plugin analytics and native AI updates, a really clear divide starts to open up. We're going to explore exactly who is benefiting from the current data landscape, and honestly, perhaps more importantly, who is getting left out in the cold. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at market share versus reality, gaming the install numbers, the plugin data asymmetry problem, some cool AI and WooCommerce updates, and finally, how to stay updated at wpmore.net. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Market share versus reality.
All right, so you might have heard some industry chatter lately about WordPress's overall market share dipping, sliding from 43.6% down to 41.5% across the web. But that headline, it really doesn't give us the whole picture. When you zoom in on the top 10,000 most visited sites on the internet, like the absolute elite top tier of the web, WordPress is sitting on a massive 58% share. At that level, competitors like Wix or Shopify are practically ghosts. So how on earth do we reconcile this overall drop with such crazy top-tier dominance? Well, it all comes down to the quality of the data that's actually leaving the ecosystem. Kurt Noble over at MemberPress hit the nail on the head here. He pointed out that this dip lines up perfectly with Google's massive spam crackdowns that kicked off back in March 2024. Basically, what we're really looking at is thousands of those junk made-for SEO sites just getting totally wiped out. They drop out of the measured web, and since they aren't being replaced by more junk, the overall headline share drops. But here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. This isn't real, legitimate business jumping ship. It's literally just a massive, much-needed cleanup of bad data. And actually, if you look at behavioral data, the health of the ecosystem is super clear. US search interest in WordPress just hit a 5-year high. And even wilder, buying intent queries. We're talking about people actively searching for things like WordPress development company. Those are up an incredible 450%. So yeah, the raw, unfiltered totals took a hit from the spam purge, but genuine, serious business interest, that is surging tremendously right now. Moving on to Section 2, gaming the install numbers. So we just talked about how sweeping out the junk gives us cleaner data. But what happens when the publicly visible data is being rigged from the inside? For 2 years now, a theme developer named Pavel Chiorici has been tracking something, well, highly suspicious on the WordPress.org popular themes list. 6,000. He noticed themes like Envo Royal and Futorio inexplicably gaining 6,000 net new active sites in a single week. But here's the kicker. During that exact same time frame, they only had 140 total downloads. I mean, do the math, right? It's literally an arithmetic impossibility. Let's break down the receipts Pavel gathered, because it is fascinating. First off, supposedly independent themes like Envo Royal and Envo One were moving in perfect lockstep, jumping or falling 15 to 20 ranking spots on the exact same day. Next, reverse analytics lookups showed that several of these supposedly completely separate vendor accounts were actually sharing the exact same Google Analytics ID. And finally, when Envo Royal pushed a tiny cosmetic update, it only pulled in 1,400 downloads, but they claimed an active install base of 30,000 sites. The math just doesn't math. Now, Pavel actually started reporting all these hard numbers back in September 2024, but the initial response from WordPress.org, they basically just said, the data looks real. Now, to be fair, the numbers for those specific themes were quietly reset in May 2024. But get this, just 5 weeks later, the data showed those same install numbers artificially climbing all over again.
All right, Section 3, the plugin data asymmetry. Okay, so we just looked at how public data can be artificially pumped up, but there's also a huge debate happening right now about data being totally withheld. Let's rewind to September 2022. That's when WordPress.org suddenly removed the active install growth charts from the plugin directory. Literally overnight, developers lost the one real tool they had for tracking if their plugins were actually gaining or losing users between those big milestones, like the 10,000 plus mark.
Over the next 4 years, the community piled on 178 ticket comments begging for this data back. Recently, Matt Mullenweg finally weighed in. He cited competing interests and the different long-term incentives between commercial and community plugins, but he offered zero timeline for bringing the charts back. So what did the community do? They just rebuilt it themselves. They launched WPRankings.com using 4 years of scraped API snapshots, and it pulled in 72,000 unique visitors in just its first 24 hours.
So, what does this all mean? Well, former Automatic employee Mark Riley summed it up perfectly. He pointed out that while independent plugin developers are kept totally in the dark, Automatic still sees all the install data. And that asymmetry completely shapes product decisions. A lot of developers have noticed that the official reasoning changed over time, too. Back in 2022, removing the charts was framed as a privacy issue. But this recent response? It sounds a lot more like a deliberate policy decision regarding the commercial ecosystem. The end result is this massive asymmetry, where independent devs are forced to rely on community-built API hacks just to understand how their own products are performing. Which brings us to Section 4, AI and WooCommerce updates. All right, let's shift gears a bit and look at the actual builder tools developers have their hands on right now. We've got two major, super practical updates rolling out. On one hand, the WordPress AI plugin version 1.2.0 is baking some incredible native AI infrastructure directly into the platform. Seriously, WordPress 7.0 basically made it the first major CMS that AI agents can operate directly. And on the flip side, WooCommerce 11.0 is currently in beta, and it is laser-focused on scaling and raw performance. Let's unpack these AI features first, because they're pretty neat. The big headline for version 1.2.0 is a new Suggest Reply feature for comments. It lets moderators quickly spin up replies in friendly, professional, or casual tones, though thankfully a human always gets the final edit control before hitting send. They also added bulk content summarization, but if you're a developer, the real game changer here is the new read-only abilities APIs. We're talking core/read content and core/read users. This essentially gives AI agents a structured, strictly permission-checked way to read content and user data. It is a massive step forward for legitimate publishers wanting to integrate AI safely. Now, what's really interesting here are the hard performance metrics coming in WooCommerce version 11.0, which officially drops on July 28th. If you run a large store, you're going to love this. Product object caching is going to be turned on by default for new stores. And just look at the time savings. We're talking a 9 to 12% cut in variable product load times and a 6 to 12% slice off bundled checkout processing. Oh, and a quick heads up for the devs listening, the product editor beta is officially being retired in this release. So scratch that experimental setup. It's time to head back to the classic editor and audit your code. And finally, Section 5, stay updated at WPMore.net. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Shifting market shares, totally manipulated metrics, withheld data, and some genuinely powerful new builder tools. Trying to navigate this ecosystem right now takes really reliable information. If you want to bypass all the noise and get the real, unvarnished story behind these metrics, the updates, and the community every single week, you absolutely need to check out WPMore.net. It is the core source for everything we've dug into today from the WP More newsletter issue 49. It's hands down the best place to get trusted ecosystem data, curated for you, saving you a ton of time and keeping you fully in the loop. Before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on today. Seeing how information in this space is controlled, manipulated, or even entirely withheld, how does data asymmetry affect your own WordPress strategy? Think about how much you rely on those analytics and community tools. I highly encourage you to keep pulling on this thread and stay sharp by visiting WPMore.net. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.